An increasingly deranged Donald Trump is maintaining his recent habit of public meltdowns and public attacks against judges he doesn't like. But the one I'm about to show you is probably the dumbest one yet, and that's saying something. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, as you know, Donald Trump has had a series of public meltdowns as his courtroom losses continue to pile up in a number of different venues on a number of different topics of executive overreach. And he's doing everything in his power to try to delegitimize the courts and the particular judges. But this one is really, really stupid. So it's about Judge Boasberg, who is the Bush-appointed, Obama-elevated judge that told Donald Trump that he couldn't, he couldn't deport hundreds of migrants to El Salvador, and Trump defied the court order, and now there's an ongoing back and forth that I'm going to update you on. But this is Donald Trump's recent attack on Judge Boasberg. In all caps, just such a conflict of interest, he says on Truth Social. And he posted a picture of, let's see, 8 people here? 8 people. Several judges. And the tall one with the arrow pointed over, that's Judge Boasberg. The person standing next to him with another arrow is Doug Emhoff, husband of former Vice President Kamala Harris. Okay? Donald Trump says he's found a conflict of interest. This is such a conflict of interest because Boasberg was in a photograph with the former second gentleman of the United States. This is how desperate and stupid he really is, right? This is where we are. So, Mediaite reports on this. Trump launches a new all-caps attack on judge who blocked him. Here's the dubious conflict of interest. Trump called for Boasberg's impeachment after he temporarily ordered the Trump administration to stop deporting migrants under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. This prompted Chief Justice John Roberts to issue a statement rebuking Trump, which Trump decided wasn't about him. He didn't mention me by name. Okay. On Saturday night, Trump posted a photo of Boasberg in a group shot with the caption, "Such a conflict of interest." Underneath the photo, credited to Kevin Allen, Trump circled the names Judge Boasberg and Doug Emhoff in the photo caption. And again, Emhoff is Kamala Harris's husband. The conflict Trump is alleging appears to be that Boasberg and Emhoff, brace yourselves, folks, brace yourselves, appeared in a group photo in 2022, documenting their participation in a Shakespeare Theater Company event in Washington, D.C. In other words, they were photographed 2 or 3 years ago because they both happen to be theater geeks. That's it. That's it. Spring was in the air on the evening of the Shakespeare Theater Company's mock trial, and our thoughts turned to love, or rather the fantastically unpleasant things that can happen when love goes wrong enough to end up in a courtroom. At issue was the legal dispute between Margaret and hero of Much Ado About Nothing. Fortunately, the jokes were fast and furious, the arguments state of the art, and the verdict a tribute to Shakespearean justice. Lowell introduced the Corte Suprema de Casacion, the Supreme Court of Cassation, former Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer, Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, Judge Patricia A. Millett, U.S. Court of Appeals for the District Court of Columbia, Judge Amy Berman Jackson, U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, Judge James E. Boasberg, U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, Judge Patricia Tolliver Giles, U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia, and the Marshal for the court, Pamela Talkin, former Marshal of the Supreme Court of the United States. Counsel for Margaret the petitioner was Doug Emhoff, second gentleman. For hero, the respondent, Deborah Katz, D.C. litigator, founding partner of Katz, Marshall, and Banks. The mock trial resulted in judgments against several fictional characters, including Emhoff's client. So yeah, that's Donald Trump saying that basically the judge is illegitimate because, again, 2 or 3 years ago, they were photographed at the same event together, which was a nerd event for theater geeks, about prosecuting fictional characters. Yeah. That's how you know Trump is scraping the bottom of the barrel, I should say. So, what about Judge Boasberg and the ongoing legal drama? Well, there's a lot to talk about, but I want to play this clip, which captures Boasberg's patience, and his patience is running thin.
This judge has a long fuse from the standpoint of judicial temperament. That fuse has clearly burned down, and he's ready to go off. He's had enough. You know, what's happened all week is that the government is playing hide the ball. They're temporizing. They're not answering the questions that he's put forward. They're making disingenuous arguments. And then today, of course, counsel for the government admitted that he did convey what was a verbal order from the judge, conceded that he knew that that was an order, and he conveyed that, and that was that, and the planes didn't turn around. So this is an evolving story. It kind of has the allure of a slow motion car crash as you look at it.
So you can tell things are getting pretty tense, but we'll go into some more specifics. This is actually a really interesting article from Axios. Trump moves closer to court crisis. Many top legal experts believe a full-blown constitutional showdown between Donald Trump and the courts is already here. Others are confident there's still room to avoid one. But most agree that the administration's battle with U.S. District Judge James Boasberg, who last weekend ordered a temporary halt of the administration's deportation of alleged Venezuelan gang members, is a significant escalation. This is the part that caught my eye. Conservative lawyer John Yoo. Okay, this was a guy who basically wrote the memo for President Bush to engage in enhanced interrogation tactics, right? Torture. And he's also a believer of unitary executive theory, right? This idea that within the executive branch, the president has total and absolute power and cannot be checked by the courts or Congress. So this is a very maximalist approach to authoritarian rule, and he's a Trump ally. Go figure, all these things tend to go together. Torture, authoritarian rule, Trumper, they seem to align pretty well. This is what he had to say. This is what he told Fox. I worry that there might be some people in the Trump administration who would actually like to defy a judicial order, which I think would be a terrible mistake. If the courts can't render reliable decisions, then our legal system doesn't function. If our legal system doesn't function, the court is in really bad shape. Senior members of the Trump administration and the MAGA-verse have been talking for months about simply ignoring court orders they don't like. Now the talk is being tested. A senior White House official told Axios' Mark Caputo of the deportation flight, quote, "It's the showdown that was always going to happen between these two branches of government." Trump's lawyers have made narrow arguments in court that the administration didn't intentionally violate the order by Boasberg to halt the deportation of alleged Venezuelan gang members. Over the past week, administration legal tactics also grew more aggressive. Lawyers refused to turn over information Boasberg requested and petitioned a higher court to have him removed from the case. The Justice Department asked that Boasberg and another federal judge, Beryl Howell, be removed from pending cases, requested are almost never granted. Trump said the Senate should impeach Boasberg, which drew a rare rebuke from Chief Justice John Roberts. Earlier this month, U.S. District Court Judge John McConnell of Rhode Island said the administration's stance on freezing federal funding undermines the distinct constitutional roles of each branch. Last month, McConnell wrote that the administration was violating the plain text of a temporary restraining order. Okay, so this is where we are in the ongoing battle. We have at least two, if not more, credible instances of the Trump administration willfully defying a court order. But it also goes to show how desperate Trump is, right? This idea that, okay, he is an impeachment, which will never happen, even if a majority of Republicans voted for it in the House, which is, it's possible, right? They're in the majority. They have the numbers, and all you need is a simple majority to vote to impeach. You need a supermajority in the United States Senate, 67 senators. They will never get that. So even if they impeach Boasberg, they will never convict him, never have him removed, and it could be used as political fodder by the Democrats, and hopefully it will if that's what happens. But for Trump getting all the way back to it, to be so desperate in this situation, as his administration continues to escalate the defiance of Boasberg, to pin his hopes on this, okay, well, listen, the former husband of the former vice president was once in a photograph with this judge 2 or 3 years ago, again, at an event for theater geeks. This doesn't seem particularly credible. This, of all the stupid things that Trump has said regarding these judges, this is probably the dumbest and the thinnest, and it just goes to show how desperate he really is. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.